Welcome back. We're reviewing the 4 proposed amendments to Florida's Constitution, which will be voted on November 8, 2016. Next up, Amendment 1. It was placed on the ballot by a group called Yes on One for the Sun and is titled The Rights of Electricity Consumers Regarding Solar Energy Choice. The amendment allows for consumers to own or lease solar equipment installed on their property to generate electricity for their own use. On one side of the issue is Yes on One for the Sun. The group has raised over $10 million. They are blanketing the state with TV commercials. The group opposing Amendment 1 is Floridians for Solar Choice. The Anti-Amendment 1 coalition has produced this spot to make their point.
Utility companies have recently spent millions of dollars to limit Floridians' right to solar. They disguise their corrupt intentions with the misleading name Yes for One on the Sun. By using language which mimics real solar advocates, they hope to limit solar availability in Florida and negatively impact the industry. Clay County Master Plumbing partnered with Renewable Drive to raise awareness on these important upcoming votes. Don't let fossil fuel special interests control the future of solar or the world. We ask that you all vote yes on Amendment 4 in August and no on Amendment 1 in November. Just remember, yes for August and no 1 November. Mark August 30th on your calendar and vote.
Screven Watson is a spokesman for Yes on One for the Sun and disagrees with the opposition's view of the amendment.
You know, it's very interesting because these are the same people that said our amendment did nothing. So they said we don't need it because it does nothing. Now they're saying that it only benefits utility companies. I couldn't disagree anymore. As we talked earlier, I think this is a framework. When you put something in the Constitution, people forget that amendments are really a framework of rights between governments and citizens. And basically that's what we're doing here. But we're not closing the door on regulation for safety for consumers. I mean, there have been, not every actor in the solar industry is bad, but they have them like any other industry. And when they're bad actors, they come to Florida. That's just the way things happen here. And in Orlando, we've had some real bad examples of solar energy companies that have come in and had consumer issues, safety issues. So our amendment gives people right to own it and generate it. So that's pro-solar, and that's what we're trying to raise the profile. But it allows protections that citizens and consumers expect.
The advocates for Amendment 1 are running a series of ads statewide.
This November, there may be some tough choices on your ballot, but here's an easy one. Amendment 1. Just think, one for the sun. Amendment 1 guarantees your right to generate your own solar electricity. And placing that right in Florida's Constitution keeps politicians and special interests from tampering with it. Amendment 1 also protects consumers, those who choose solar and those who don't. If you don't choose solar, you won't have to subsidize those who do. And if you do go solar, you won't lose the consumer protections that all energy consumers enjoy today. Amendment 1 protects consumers, including our seniors, from scams, rip-offs, and hidden clauses. It does solar the right way, providing for common-sense consumer protections that keep solar affordable, customers safe, and scam artists out. Amendment 1 guarantees your access to solar energy. It promotes innovation, protects consumers, and empowers you. Florida needs more solar, so let's do it the right way. This November, vote yes on One for the Sun.
Well, that was sort of our opening spot, and we wanted to bring attention to Amendment 1, that it was on the ballot, and just raise the profile of the solar issue and Amendment 1. And then we wanted to start describing sort of what it did. And in that spot, basically what we're talking about is the reason it needs to be in the Constitution is it would preserve and protect the right to own solar energy or own solar panels on your roof and generate your own electricity.
Some critics have said that because citizens can own their own solar facilities now, why is there a need to change the Constitution?
You can do it now, but it's not guaranteed. We all know, we have lots of friends in the legislature, but we all know that every session they do different things. And in the future, they could regulate solar energy to disallow individual ownership. They could do something that would prohibit solar energy by individual citizens. So by putting this in the Constitution, it's harder to change once it's in the Constitution. And there's a second part that's important. It allows people to have the comfort to invest. Solar energy at this point is not a very cheap, so we believe it'll come down as more people, get activated in solar energy. But right now, by having it in the Constitution, you'd be able to invest safely, knowing that you're not going to put all that money into something that one legislative session later changes.
Despite Florida's nickname as the Sunshine State, the majority of the renewable energy produced comes from biomass, not solar. Solar energy accounted for 5% of all of the energy generated from renewable sources in 2014. That number is expected to rise to 30% in the next 10 years.
I think solar's coming. President Obama has really been pushing alternative energy sources, and there's been tax incentives in places to do more. Florida's coming on strong. You see a lot of solar farms cropping up around the state. Walt Disney World did one in the shape of Mickey Mouse. FP&L has been very aggressive with solar farms.
Other Sunbelt states, like Arizona, have been plagued by troubles when it comes to solar. Mr. Watson believes Amendment 1 can help keep that from happening in Florida.
If you Google Arizona solar fraud or Arizona solar bankruptcy, you'll get case after case of situations where citizens and consumers were bilked out of millions of dollars. And so one of the reasons they did that is they allowed out-of-state solar companies to come into the state without any sort of regulation. And it was sort of the wild, wild west. It was so bad that the legislature 2 years later went back and undid what they had done. The Attorney General out there sued a bunch of solar companies. So we're trying to prevent that. We're trying to do solar the right way, which gives you the right to own the solar and generate it, but also, continues to allow governmental bodies to have protection for those consumers.
With Florida's solar future looking sunny, Mr. Watson believes Amendment 1 will benefit the state's consumers.
We said we're the Sunshine State. We ought to harness the energy of our sun. It's a clean energy. It should be in the mix of all of our different choices. So this puts in the Constitution the right for citizens to own and generate their own electricity. And by the way, sell it back. They can sell their excess energy back to the grids and to the utilities company. Number two, though, you want it done right. You want to do it in a way that you're protected. Citizens are used to the government having some ability to protect them, both safety-wise and consumer fraud-wise. And then thirdly, and equally important, is a fairness issue. If I have solar panels on my roof and you don't, you should not have to subsidize my use of solar panels. And what that really means is that you still, when you have solar energy, you're still connected to the infrastructure of the grid, as they call it. It's nighttime. We have storms in Florida. It's not always sunny. So there's times where you're going to need to use electrical power, that you didn't generate from the grid. And as I said earlier, to sell it back.
We now go to the final two amendments on the November 8th ballot. Both amendments were authorized by unanimous votes of the legislature. Amendment 3 would allow the legislature to develop a law that would provide a total or partial property tax exemption for the homesteads of permanently disabled police officers, firefighters, and other first responders. Constitutional Amendment 5 would expand a homestead property tax exemption that is now used by seniors who earn less than $20,000 a year and have lived in their homes for at least 25 years.